going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out something super exciting, that being the Transformers Studio Series Gamer Edition War for Cybertron Deluxe Class Barricade. And that right there is an intro which I never in a million years thought I'd be opening with, because yes, Hasbro are finally beginning to dip their toes into the gamerverse. And to be fair, we're dealing with an entire Pandora's box, because not only are they going to be tapping into War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, but who's to say they won't dip their toes into the live action movie games, you know, Dark of the Moon, Revenge of the Fallen. Personally, I'd love to see the likes of Highbrow, Warpath. Those are just to name a few. But here we're taking a look at a War for Cybertron character, and it's surprisingly one that never had an original figure of himself, that being Barricade. And it's a decent looking figure, you know, it's nothing mind-blowing by the standards of the Studio Series. There are some parts which maybe I wish were done a little better, but what I will say is this guy is stacking. This is one of the biggest SS Deluxes I think we've seen forever, and to be fair, he would perfectly fit in with some of those original 2010 characters. So as we check out the details, you know, in terms of the design, for the most part, is fairly accurate. I will say the biggest issue this guy suffers from is that he's kind of clunky, especially here in the hip department. Now, I am aware that the wheels did end up here on the thighs, but I do wish there were a way to kind of get rid of these covers or these back pieces, because yeah, they are just way too big. And the backpack too from the front kind of looks a little big, but you know, it does house some pretty decent detail, which I was excited to see, because in the game, your POV is always of the back of the character, so it is nice they incorporated that detail. And it is a thruster, so I guess in some ways this is what would propel the character into battle, so that's kind of neat. But as we check out the face sculpt, to me it always looks like he's crying, which is kind of strange, but you know what, painted pretty nicely. I like the purple sections that we have sticking over the shoulders, and the chest design is awesome. One of my favourite parts about those kind of Cybertronian characters were the almost solar paneling detail they had, and you can see some of that here with Barricade. But the biceps and the forearms look pretty neat. I love the hand sculpt, but the legs, to be fair, are probably the weakest part about the figure, and in particular would be the feet. I think these are my least favourite part about the figure as a whole, because not only are they completely slacking in the articulation department, but they are pre-posed and they are massive, meaning that it's pretty difficult to do anything with this guy in terms of the whole lower department. So yeah, that does kind of suck. And to flip here to the back, the windshield does essentially just kind of stick there, so doesn't really incorporate within the torso, which kind of sucks. And he is a little hollow in the back of the thighs and for the inside of the legs, so that's a bit of a shame. But in terms of his articulation, I'd say from the torso upwards it's decent, but then as we take a look at this section, it does get a little bad. So here for the head is on a ball joint, very sturdy, so I mean it can look up and down as well as rotate left to right. The arms are on very sturdy ball joints, they can also go out to the side. Bit of bicep rotation. Unfortunately, due to the clunky design, you can't quite bend the elbows past 90, which kind of sucks, but it's a limitation due to the design, so I guess there's not much you can do. The same can also be said here for the wrist. You know, it's on a nice ball joint, but the thumb does just smack itself into this panel. But surprisingly, the waist goes completely unhindered despite having that backpack. So yeah, that's pretty cool. The hips can kick forwards that far, but I'm going to be honest, they don't look the best. These are probably some of the ugliest legs I've seen on a Studio Series figure, but they can kick back roughly to that far. Range of motion out to the side sucks. I mean, it can't even kick out to 90, and it's because the ball socket literally engulfs the entire joint. So yeah, that sucks. We do get a tiny bit of thigh rotation. Unfortunately, pretty much non-existent knees. I mean, look at that. That is so bad for a modern deluxe class. Kind of sucks, not gonna lie, Hasbro. And due to transformation, you know, the foot can pivot forwards and backwards, but I mean, what are you really gonna get out of that? And unfortunately, like I said, nothing out of the ankle. So yeah, kind of lacking in that department, but an area of which I'd say what's pretty cool would be his weaponry. So as you guys will recall if you played the game, the weapons do kind of form out of the forearm, and that is exactly what you can do here with Barricade. So here we have this really nice kind of Cybertronian rifle, and in order to implement it, you pretty much take the forearm and rip it straight off, and then we can smack this new rifle on, and I thought this was awesome. Now, as far as I'm aware, pretty much all of the Gamer Edition subline is going to have this kind of cross-compatible gimmick where you can take the likes of Optimus Prime's Ion Blaster and smack it onto Barricade and vice versa. So it is awesome that the weapons will be cross-compatible, but yeah, I really do like how it looks as if though it's transformed out of the arm. That is a really sick gimmick, and for whatever reason, if you didn't like this display, you know, you can come around here to the back and smack it into this massive tab. So to be fair, weapon storage isn't too bad. Now, as we jump into a few comparisons, here we have Barricade alongside the original 2010 Cybertronian Megatron, and as I said previously, I really do get 2010 vibes from this guy because in terms of a deluxe scale, he is pretty substantial, and I'd even go as far as saying the plastic quality of this figure feels a little better than this old 2010 release, but I have got to be honest with you guys and say that this original Megatron has better articulation in some aspects than this new 2023 version, so yeah, that does kind of suck, but you know, maybe if you're not too keen on picking up some of the updated versions of the characters which saw previous releases, I don't think this Megatron here is going to pair too badly with Barricade. Here he is alongside another 2010 release, that being the Cybertronian Bumblebee, which may or may not, again, be slightly better than its new version. I guess only time will tell, but scale-wise, you can see not too far off, despite there being 13 years between the two releases. And because we've done two 2010 comparisons, here's a few 2012 comparisons. So we have the Fall of Cybertron Optimus Prime, which unfortunately was where I thought the line kind of took a downturn in terms of scaling and quality. But you can see that this new Barricade is still bigger than this old 2012 Optimus. So, you know, maybe if you are looking to incorporate this figure into your older display, I do think he's going to work better with some of those War for Cybertron figures than as opposed to the Fall of Cybertron line. And here he is alongside the Decepticon Shockwave, again from that 2012 Fall of Cybertron line, so as you guys can see, definitely pretty substantial in terms of a deluxe scale. And just to round things off nicely, here we have him alongside a Studio Series Cybertronian Bumblebee and the Bumblebee movie Deluxe Class Ironhide. Now, as we get stuck into the transformation, again, I was pleasantly surprised to see that this guy really does have a kind of 2010 quality to him. So, to kickstart things off with, you're going to want to make sure the neck joint is fully recessed back. We can then come here to the forearms, take this top panel and basically split it in half, take the wrist, hinge it upwards, and then when you get to about this point, rotate it so the palm is facing towards yourself, and then just slide this section here down, snap that into place, and then rotate here at the bicep. Do the exact same here for this side, so lift that panel up, rotate here at the hand and just slide it into that hollow compartment, rotate all the way around until it looks something along the lines of this. Then what you're going to want to do is take the whole backpack and detach it. It does hold in via this huge square peg, and then basically just straighten this out until it does click into place. You're then going to want to take the shoulders, hinge these out to the sides as we're going to rotate so the front of the figure is now facing the back. Then we're going to come here to the shins, take the feet, and this little kind of cutout is going to slide into the slots on the shins, so just snap them into place. We can then take the windshield, hinge these pieces up, and personally this is where I like to combine the two halves, so snap the front of the vehicle in and then peg the whole windshield together. So snap all of that into place. Then you're going to want to take these massive wheels, which unfortunately, yeah, do kind of stick out like a sore thumb, but these do basically soft tab into the thighs, so just bring these sections down and then rotate at this second joint and snap them into the front of the vehicle. So do the exact same here for this side, and to be fair, they are on ball joints, so if they bothered you that much, I guess technically you could remove them, but personally I'm not going to do that because 9 times out of 10 whenever I've tampered with a ball joint, it's always a little looser once you snap it back on. But just snap that in there, and then as far as the windshield goes, make sure the knees are straightened out. You are just going to want to snap it into place. Now that we've done that, we can take the shoulders, bring them down on both the ball joint and the hinge joint, and this massive tab is going to smack itself into that slot, so snap that in there. Do the exact same here for this side, so snap that into place. And this personally is my favorite part about the transformation. This whole section slides over the top, and these little tabs here do find themselves into these little slots. So what I'd recommend to do would be to slide these big panels in first, take these pieces, give them a good old squeeze, and with a bit of luck, everything should just snap in, and bang, there we have Barricade transformed into his Cybertronian vehicle mode. And if this isn't a Batman reference, then I don't know what is. I'm almost certain they're going to take this mold and retool it into something like the 89 Batmobile, because come on, this is definitely a Batmobile-inspired vehicle, but it's Cybertronian, and to be fair, looks really accurate to how it appeared in the game, and I think is probably my personal favourite mode out of the two, which kind of sucks because 9 times out of 10, I love to display my Transformers in their bot modes, but this thing is just so nicely sculpted. So here for the front, we get this kind of very aggressive looking spiked bumper. That looks awesome. awesome. More of that kind of solar paneling detail for the headlights. I do believe this is the live action movie Decepticon logo. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but considering these games came out around the time of the Michael Bay movies, I guess it would make sense. And the paintwork here for the windshield is really cool. They have decided to go with solid plastic, which I guess in some ways is cool because it does basically prevent any mismatched colours. But yeah, it doesn't really give you the same effect as transparent plastic, but it's alright. We do get more of that kind of honeycombed effect here for the back, that enormous thruster, which I think looks awesome. And then this is what Barricade looks like from the underside. Now, I will say my biggest issue with the vehicle would have to be the wheels, because as you guys all know, the Cybertronian wheels always had this kind of internal energon effect, and unfortunately we don't get that here with this figure. They are just solid black pieces of plastic, and this is where I wish maybe they could have taken inspiration from some of those original 2010 Deluxes in giving us transparent pieces painted over in black. I just think that would have looked way cooler, you know, maybe even had they just put a bit of purple, I think that would have looked a lot cooler, but it is what it is. Now, in terms of weapon storage, we get this massive square cutout, which you can take the blaster to, and the kind of ammo pack perfectly snaps into place, and there is Barricade in his armoured vehicle mode. Now, I'm not too sure specifically for Barricade, but I think most of the Autobots and Decepticons had this kind of third hover mode, so it maybe would have been cool had they taken a bit of creative license to give us that here with this guy. I mean, to be fair, all they'd have to do is just take the wheels and give them the ability to flip on the underside to give it the impression like it was gliding, but unfortunately we do just simply have a four-wheeled vehicle, which, you know what, gets the job done, I guess. Now, as we get stuck into a few comparisons, again, we're taking a trip down memory lane as we have the original 2010 Megatron. And as I said previously, I think these guys work really nicely with each other. So maybe if you're not too keen on the upcoming Studio Series Megatron and you just want to keep this guy, I do think they're going to look pretty decent alongside each other, because this Barricade in vehicle mode is enormous for a contemporary deluxe. And you can see that even here alongside the original 2010 Cybertronian Bumblebee. So like I said, you know, maybe if you just literally want to pick up some of the characters which never saw original versions of themselves, I don't think they're going to look too out of place alongside the original. So at least we don't have to make them redundant and they can still stay in our collection in some way, shape or form. But yeah, as you guys can see, a massive looking vehicle in comparison to Bumblebee. Here he is alongside the 2012 Fall of Cybertron Optimus Prime, so much bigger than that figure, which is awesome, because let's be real, these figures kind of sucked when they first came out. I remember when the first wave of these surfaced and we were all like, what on earth, because we went to amazing figures for War for Cybertron to huge downgrades here with Fall of Cybertron. So it is nice to see them keep the scale big and large for these Studio Series versions, but I don't think it's until we bring out some Studio Series figures that you guys are really going to appreciate just how massive Barricade is, as here he is alongside the Cybertronian B127. So it is huge. I do wonder why they decided to make these Gamer Edition figures much bigger than the average SS versions, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, I would love to see this B127 in the same scale here as this Barricade, because come on, this is the size the old Deluxes used to be, and it is a very, very good size. So I am not complaining at all. And this here was really the comparison that made me think, wow, here we have him alongside the Voyager class Bumblebee movie Optimus. And you can see, this is a Voyager, this is a Deluxe. Vehicle mode wise, there really isn't much in it at all. I mean, of course, Prime is a little more substantial in terms of parts count, but length wise, as you guys can see, Barricade is surprisingly a little longer than the Voyager Optimus. And I don't think there has been a Studio Series Deluxe which has been able to beat the length here of the Prime truck mode. So yeah, definitely very surprising to say the least. Now, as we get stuck into the reverse transformation for Barricade, quite simplistic but rather effective. So you're going to want to take the entire rear of the vehicle, my personal favourite step, and just bring this here all the way to the back. We can then take this section and snap it down just like this. What you're then going to want to do is come here to the arms and basically just begin to loosen them up and angle these sections here out to the sides. We can then split this entire section down the middle, and then I'd recommend to take the windshield, just bring these pieces down, and then take the waist joint and flip it here all the way around so the front is now exactly where it should be. Now you're going to want to take these pieces and just detach those from their tabs, and like I said previously, we're dealing with both a ball joint and a hinge joint for this wheel piece. So bring this up, snap this piece into place. To be fair, it just kind of sits there, and then take this section here and rotate it all the way around. Do the exact same here for this side, so snap that into place. Bring this piece here all the way around, take the massive feet and stick these pieces out just like that, and then fold these back pieces down. Then what you're going to want to do is again take the biceps, rotate these here all the way around, and do the same here for this side. Split the forearms open to take the hands out, rotate those around, snap that into place, and do the exact same here for this side. So definitely quite a thought through conversion, a lot more involved than personally I was expecting. It is just a shame that he's quite limited in terms of articulation, because if we had the articulation in the legs, honestly guys, I would be so much more impressed with this figure than I am. And then for some finishing touches, you know, we just compress this whole back piece in, and that massive square slot is going to snap itself into the back. We can then take the neck joint, extend that forwards, and bang, there we have Barricade back in his robot mode. And wrapping up on my review for the Studio Series War for Cybertron Barricade. Overall, the figure definitely isn't terrible, but I wouldn't say it's something to write home about either. You know, for the first Gamer Edition release, it has left me wondering how they're going to top the original versions of Bumblebee and Optimus, but I guess we'll just have to get into that when I get stuck into their reviews. You know, in terms of this figure, I do like the way the robot mode looks. It is a little clunky in terms of the design, and considering this is coming out in 2023, I had hoped they were going to try and minimalize the kibble, but, you know, it is what it is. I'd say the entire upper torso of the figure is pretty promising. You know, the articulation isn't terrible, but the legs are unfortunately severely lacking. You know, the knee articulation is terrible, and it is such a shame that we can't kick the hips out to the sides nor move the ankles. You know, that is so bad for a Studio Series Deluxe, and something that I was so hoping they'd stick to a kind of tradition. You know, I think any of the new figures should have the same articulation across the board, so it is a shame to see them kind of, you know, skipping a few points here and there. The figure is massive, however, though, and will scale perfectly with some of those original War for Cybertron 2010 Deluxes, which is something I didn't expect to say. And in terms of the way he feels, the plastic is great. You know, this figure definitely doesn't feel cheap, despite there being quite a few hollow spaces in the legs, and the transformation too, very involved. I like the way it works. You know, the vehicle mode I think is solid all round. I do just wish they could have smacked on a few translucent energon wheels, because I think that probably would have made the alt mode perfect. And we've got to talk about the weapons. You know, I love how they're keeping this kind of cross-compatible gimmick across the board of the Gamer Edition, how we can switch the weapons out much like we could in the original game. So with all that being said, is this a figure that I'd say would be a must-have? Personally, I'd just hold out to see what Bumblebee and Optimus have in store for us. I mean, it's definitely a solid release, but unfortunately I just think in terms of articulation, he is slightly lacking. I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comment section below. What do you guys think of this Gamer Edition Barricade? And until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.